let's go with verses. All right, you guys may know those sound effects from Street Fighter on Super Nintendo. Great game. So welcome to Versus. This is the very first edition of Versus. So if you like this segment, let me know in the comments down below. If you want me to pit two things up against each other, let me know in the comments. So we'll see how this goes. So Davinci versus Premiere. Bum, bum, bum. So for some of my current subscribers, you may or may not have known that I've been gone for a while. And the reason I've been gone for a while is because I've transitioned from Adobe Premiere to Davinci Resolve, editing solely in Davinci Resolve. And so far, I've liked it. There are definitely some setbacks, but there are definitely some positives as well. And each program offers different things. So for this installment of Versus, I'm not going to have a clear-cut winner, but I'm just going to show you what I like about each program, and we'll go from there. Let me preface this by also saying that these are personal preferences based on what I do, my experiences, and my likes and dislikes. I am not saying that this is the clear-cut winner. This is based on what I like. So, let me know in the comments whether or not you agree or disagree with me on certain parts of this. I'd be very curious to see kind of what your workflows are for this. So let's get started. Oh, let me also say that I'm using the studio version of DaVinci. I think it's DaVinci 16, yes, and Premiere Pro 2019. So let's get started. So forget the desktop view here. So number one, I'm going to talk about animation, and I think the winner here is Premiere. The reason for that is just because the way everything is set up within this window here is just much more simpler and all together. So for instance, if I want to change the position of something, create a keyframe here. Let's just move it down here. Boom, boom. I can, change the velocity down here, change the interpolation, and it's all right here, pretty clear cut. And I feel like this may be a personal thing, but I feel like I have more control with the keyframes. It's much smoother. On the other hand, let's go to DaVinci. I got kind of a similar setup here. If I want to do the same thing within DaVinci, I will go to Inspector, make sure the Inspector window is open. Go to the position page, click a keyframe, go down a little bit, press play, and then bring it down. Go to the main cam here. I wish, oh God, please, in the next version of DaVinci, please, BlackMagic, just do this. Please, just have some sort of animation or keyframe timeline right here. I really dislike having to go into the keyframes here and editing them here. It's just a hassle. So in terms of animation, Premiere wins. So color, if you may or may not have guessed, DaVinci wins. So I'll show you that. Obviously, I'm going to open this color timeline here. So obviously, this is a pretty raw video. It was from an event that I filmed. It's pretty dark. Let's go to the color page, see what we can do here. Let's bring up everything with the offset. Oh, it would help to have a node here. Duh. Let's bring up everything here. Bring the lift down. This is going to be really rough. Gain up. Lift down. I mean, already that's looking good. I'm going to turn off the node before, after, and just, what was that, 10-ish seconds? I could make it look fairly good. Maybe up the saturation a bit. Less contrast just a little bit. I mean, you probably can't get it perfect just because it was such a dark shot. But let me go over to the color timeline here in Premiere and do the same thing. So here we got the same thing here. I'm going to go to the color tab here, and right off the bat, there are just less controls in Premiere. You know, you can definitely fine-tune things much, much better within Davinci. I'm not going to go too much into everything here, but, you know, and I also find the way that Lumetri kind of handles the colors is a little wonky. It's not perfect. It's not as smooth. Plus the fact that DaVinci utilizes the graphics card a lot, that definitely helps. But I mean, I kind of got the same look here. But it's definitely not perfect. So I kind of achieved the same look here, but I mean, even looking at the scopes, like the information is definitely easier to read in the Resolve scope window versus the Lumetri scope window. So, you know, there's the creative tab here, curves, all that, which is nice, but I still think that you definitely have more control. And in the end, it just looks like it gives a better. I also find that the export quality is a little bit better in DaVinci Resolve. So take that as you will. I personally will say DaVinci wins in terms of color. In terms of multiple timeline resolutions and frame rates, Premiere wins. You can do any resolution, any frame rate, per sequence. It's just marvelous. DaVinci has this problem where I will bring you into the desktop here. So if we go to this timeline here, you'll see that the timeline resolution is 1080. And that's it. You can't change the resolution. You can play the playback frame rate, but that really doesn't do much. You can change the frames per second once at the beginning of when you're setting up the project, but you can't change it after that. And each timeline has to have the same frame rate. And that's very annoying. For people who, you know, work with especially online content, whatever the media that you're receiving can be all different types of codecs, frame rates, and maybe you want to export something at a different frame rate. And to do that, you just have to create a brand new project and copy all the assets, bring them over onto that new project with the new frame rate, and then export it that way. It's a little convoluted, and I hope BlackMagic fixes that in the next version. Syncing audio is a little different between each program. I'm going to show you the way that I sync audio. I'm going to bring not that clip. I'm going to bring this clip in. This is just a speaker that I filmed at an event, and this is the audio file for that. Lock that in, highlight both. Oops. And then right click, go to synchronize based on audio. And then it just processes the audio. So while that is processing, let's go to DaVinci Resolve and do it here. So I got the same source file here and the same audio file here. The way to do that here is you highlight both of those, right click, go to auto sync audio. You can do it based on timecode or waveform, and then also choose to append the tracks. I'm just going to do based on waveform. Click that. It analyzes the content. And then that's it. There's no, just by looking at it and not clicking anything, you can't tell if it was a successful sync until you open the file or bring it onto the timeline. I just wish that DaVinci had some sort of visual representation saying this track has sunk with this track at these points. The fact that there's nothing there to see agitates me. So let's go to the Premiere timeline here. So you can see right here, it's a visual representation. The audio has lined up with this audio here, and it works. So I'm not saying that. Hold on, let me go to the camera here. I'm not saying that Davinci's syncing is bad. I actually really enjoy the time code sync within Davinci, because you can just select all the audio files and all the video clips all together at the same time. Right click, auto sync audio, time code, and it just does it all together. And that is just like, oh yeah, that's money. But for other certain projects, I like the way Premiere does it. So now let's talk about compatibility with codecs. Number one, let's go back to the camera here. Premiere wins by a long shot in terms of codecs, and just playing nicely with other codecs and formats and plugins too. There are so many plugins that you can include within Premiere. In terms of codecs, playing and exporting, totally fine. It doesn't like DNxHD/HR, but hey, that's okay. It's just an Avid codec. Not that I'm dissing Avid at all. I just don't use it that much. But in terms of exporting, I have a Windows machine back at my other job, and it is absolutely unbelievable that you can now export to ProRes within Premiere or the Media Encoder on a Windows machine. It's insane, and I don't know how much money Adobe gave Apple for that, but I thank them for that. Davinci, I've had issues with codecs. Sometimes, if it's wrapped in an AVI format, it doesn't like that. Not a huge issue, but I think the compatibility and the adaptability of Premiere makes Premiere win in this fight. A couple quick things. Davinci is free to use at first, which is amazing. There is a paywall no matter what for any Adobe product. So, granted, the free version of Davinci Resolve, has its limitations. There aren't some settings. I think you can only export in 1080. Some of the OpenFX aren't, you can't utilize them, but it's a great way to just kind of learn color and editing within Davinci. Another quick thing is that Davinci uses, I mentioned it before, but Davinci utilizes the GPU more, which makes faster effects, smoother coloring sessions. Stabilization is much better in Davinci, I think. And there are things that you can fine-tune within Davinci that you can't in Premiere. I'm not saying Premiere stabilization is bad, but Davinci's is just a little bit better and a little bit smoother and a little bit, actually not a little bit, a lot faster. And then in terms of stability, Davinci, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to give that to you as well, because, I don't know what Adobe's doing, but they just have to release a stable version. I get it. You want to, create shiny new things on your .l release. I, a professional editor, would really appreciate it if that .l release was just stable. Appreciate that. So there you go. That's the first segment of Versus. There really is no winner or loser. I'd be curious what you guys think, and let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. Try out both, see what works best for you. That's kind of the whole thing here.